Okay, Brill. So yeah, so that's Merseycare's Preceptorship Programme, Pursuit of Excellence, and we'll just talk through a little bit about some of the work that we've done. So I'm Nicola Thompson. Is it gonna? Yeah. All right. So I'm Nicola Thompson. I'm the Preceptorship Development Lead at Merseycare. I'm one of two that have now been in post, and that's just my details. So just for background, I'm a mental health nurse, and I was originally employed in this post when North West Boroughs still existed. And that was in April in 2020, and then we very quickly amalgamated over to Merseycare, so kind of put all of our work together. This post was just really interesting to me because I'm really passionate about supporting our newly qualifieds, and I felt like they'd had a pretty bad deal. At the time, I was a ward manager, and I was kind of involved in some of that bad deal that our students had had, our preceptees had had. So I really wanted to kind of make a difference with that. So as you'll see as we go through this, I am really passionate about this programme and about supporting our future workforce. So just for a little bit of info, because not everybody knows, so it's just about the key terms. So preceptee is a newly registered staff member. So we'll be referring to them a lot. Preceptor is the staff member who'll be supporting the preceptee. So they're the people that are kind of like the mentors in old language, and preceptorship is the whole programme. I will likely get these confused as we go along, but what I've found through doing this work is that everybody gets them confused, and I just thought it'd be nice to just put a little bit of clarity. So the preceptee is the most important part in this process. So as I said, I'm from Merseycare, and for anybody that doesn't know Merseycare, which is probably unlikely, I just wanted to put a little bit out there. So Merseycare is a massive trust. As I said, I was with North West Boroughs, and then we amalgamated. So that staffing says 11,000. I think we've got about 12,000 staff now. And we have a range of different disciplines. We've got a lot of the AHPs. We don't have any. We've got nurses, nurse associates. We don't have any midwives at the moment, but we have social workers as well. And the way Merseycare is set up is that we're split into different divisions. So we currently have 4 divisions in the trust. We have a secure division, we have a local division, which includes mental health, all mental health, inpatient and local services. We've got a Mid-Mersey division, which was the old North West Boroughs. So that includes mental health services, urgent care services, and adult community services as well. And then we've got a community division, which includes adult community services and walk-in centres. So it's just a massive, there's AHPs across all of them services as well. So that is just a bit of a size of the population of Merseycare. So the first thing was kind of like, why now? Why is it important now for us to do any work regarding preceptorship? And the first thing was we really wanted to provide consistency throughout the trust and across disciplines. And there was a lot of people doing very different things. When I did some scoping exercise, I think there was something like 35 different preceptorship programs running throughout the trust, and that's just from the information that I received. That wasn't, everybody responding. Obviously, COVID-19's had a massive impact. And me and Jenny were just discussing, it's still continuing to have an impact now. The students that are coming through, particularly the ones that started in September last year, have been the most disrupted. They spent almost 2 years working offline, and one of the things that they'd said to us is that they'd managed to go to the lectures, they'd managed to get the information, they'd had placements, albeit they was a little bit different than usual, but what they didn't get was that peer support. They never went for a coffee, they never went for a night out with the rest of the group that they were working with, and they massively missed that. And from our September group, what they've said is, when they've had a tough shift, when I first qualified, I was able to ring somebody that I'd been to university with, and a lot of them don't have that peer support network, so feel very isolated within that role. We really wanted to support the mental health and wellbeing of staff within Merseycare. What we didn't want is that this was going to be a bit of a paper exercise and that everybody had brilliant, lovely competencies and we just filled them in and signed them off and say, oh yeah, we've got a great preceptorship programme. We really wanted to support the mental health and wellbeing of our staff and, hopefully keep them with us by doing so and being able to provide excellent care by keeping our staff healthy. As I said, we wanted to support the future generation. Within our preceptorship programme, and granted I recognise it can't happen in every trust, we've got a lot of new schemes coming in that we've then been able to target this, this demographic to hopefully roll things out trust-wide. And they include things like some career conversation work that we're doing, some like new to you inductions, and some building on, band 5 to 6 kind of progression routes. As I said, the board wanted to increase, and as I do, we want to increase recruitment and reduce attrition within Merseycare. And when we did some scoping, as I said, the feedback regarding preceptorship was generally really, really negative. And I'll come on to some of the comments that we did get. So workforce feedback. So we did a scoping exercise via survey. This was in COVID time, so it was all electronic. We had about 100 responders, which wasn't amazing, but it was enough to get some information. So 40% of them, 100, weren't aware of how to access any preceptorship documentation. But all of them had been involved in a preceptorship in some way, either as the preceptee or as the preceptor, which was just massive. So what were 40 of them people doing as part of that preceptorship? 20% said they'd had a really, really negative experience of preceptorship, and that was both as a preceptee and as a preceptor. The main difference was the length of preceptorship. So the shortest one was 1 month and the longest one was 3 years. So people were getting a really, really different offer. And one of the comments was that staffing issues were just raised in almost every comment as why this hadn't been given. We couldn't get the preceptorship because of staffing. We were thrown in the numbers because of staffing. We were expected to do X, Y, and Z because staff weren't available to do this. And these are just some of the comments, and these were from the preceptees. So it was that the preceptorship programme wasn't supportive. People talked about that they were floundering. It was a bit vague. Again, that had been trying to rush into it so people could take a caseload, or go out on visits or do assessments on their own, because they'd completed the preceptorship. That didn't help with any kind of risk management. And that wasn't just with a mental health point of view, that was an overall kind of holistic view of the patient, that it really didn't help. Staffing issues, and again, that people felt really, really pressured to complete this really quickly. Sorry, an email's just popped up. So I have missed a slide off. I thought it was on here, but I think I've deleted it by accident. But basically coming back, so what we was asked to do, we were asked to create, so the goal for this preceptorship programme was to create a trust-wide preceptorship programme that included all allied health professionals, all nurse associates, social workers, return to practice individuals, and internationally recruited professionals as well. So that was the goal. Sorry, that slide's been gone off. So what we did to this, so we initially reviewed best practice, and that was how we found the Northwest standard. So we looked at things like the Capital Nurse Programme. There's a programme in Aintree called Kickstart. So we used all these programmes and had a look, and this is how we kind of stumbled across the Northwest standards that had been created in the Northwest Professionals Group. And we reviewed the current practice. As I said, we had about 35 different preceptorship programmes that we knew of running in Merseycare. And some of them were really, really, really outdated. So they had different trust names on them, and people really, really weren't aware of what they were getting. Things were sent to us. Some pages were like 150 pages for a preceptorship pack with hundreds and hundreds of competencies that were expected to be achieved. There was just absolutely no consistency. We got a lot of feedback from the workforce. So the way that we did that was initially because with the scoping exercise and getting that information that we just spoke about, and then we held workshops. So we held about 50 workshops over the space of about 8 weeks, and people came and they helped us develop the competencies, but they also gave us a lot of feedback about what's actually happened in practice, what do they want, and that really, really defined how we were going to structure the preceptorship programme. So following that, we did define the functions of preceptorship. What did we want? And what we wanted is we wanted structured learning, we wanted set competencies, and we wanted a structured support package for our preceptees coming through, as well as being able to support the preceptors and giving them something to work towards and a reason to take a preceptee on, under the wing. As I said, we based the whole programme on the Northwest standards, and hopefully you'll be clear with them. If not, I'm happy to send them out, and I'm sure Jenny's got them. We got stakeholder engagement, so that was massive. So we've been really, really lucky in that the board has been really, really invested in the preceptorship programme. We had some support from Julie Williams and Linda Carey, who some of you may know or may not know, and they helped myself with all this initial stage. So all of the kind of background work, all of the pilot work, all of the writing the reports. They were really, really invested in that and got a really, really good educational background through that. And then we did the implementation. And so how the programme looks, these are the functions of our programme. So we have a structured learning aspect of the programme, and that includes a time for your mandatory and statutory training, as well as specific structured preceptee learning events. So what we suggest is that all preceptees would have a 4-week supernumerary time on commencement of post, and that will give them time for the mandatory and statutory training to be completed. The e-learning, of course, there's different time frames for that, but within that 4 weeks that would be done, as well as being introduced to the role and being welcomed and not thrown in at the deep end, as a lot of people have said to me. And then we've developed structured preceptee learning events, and they take place monthly, and some of them are trust-wide, so all of the preceptee bodies from across them 4 divisions can come together and have a like-minded group of people. Some of them are discipline specific, so OTs will get together, physios will get together, and some of them are divisional specific, so our secure division will come together, our community division will come together. Initially, what we'd planned for them is that we were going to have 4 kind of big events. So we were going to have an initial induction, which is a 3-day induction, which does take place. And that's a specific preceptorship induction that's separate from our corporate induction, and it's just surrounding preceptorship, and it just includes the preceptees. The second event we wanted to focus on as trust-wide, as a learning event, was quality improvement and resilience, and really building up the resilience of our preceptees. The third big event that we do is supporting students and other learners in practice. So just a bit about the theory about how you can support, because in 12 months' time, it could be that these people are the preceptors. And then the last big event is a celebration, and that's just a really nice event for us all to come together. In between that, what we hoped is that we'd have kind of action learning sets, kind of peer support groups. So every month for a 2-hour session, people would come together, somebody would bring an issue, and we'd kind of have coaching conversations around that. For whatever reason, and I've never quite got to the bottom of this, just about loads of scoping exercises, that really didn't take off, and there wasn't an interest in that. And some of the things people said, they were just kind of fed up of being on Teams, talking on Teams. Some people said, they just didn't see any value in that. They've been through university, they've done that in university, they don't want the value, they didn't see the value, and there was issues with people getting released from practice. And again, line managers and operational managers not seeing the value in having that peer support and them conversations. So what we decided to do is we've changed them events, and we actually now run a 12-month rolling programme of information and supportive sessions. So some of them things include like CQC preparation, end-of-life care, trauma-informed care, positive behavioural support, roles and responsibilities, care planning. I can't think of any of the others I've said, but they're just kind of really, really broad subjects, but we run them by discipline. So the care planning one isn't done as an overarching thing. We'll get if it's a physio, for example, we'll get a physio to come in and deliver that session to our physios, rather than, so it actually means something rather than sitting through a session that is just directed to nurses. So the second part of our setup of the programme is the domains of learning and the competencies. Now, these are really what people were interested in when we did the whole of this. So what are the competencies going to be? What are our competencies? What we looked at, as I said, we were asked by Jenny Hurst to kind of create a trust-wide preceptorship package. What we found out very quickly is that it was just absolutely impossible, and we weren't able to get something standardised across the whole trust. But what we were able to do is hold these workshops. And what we asked them, not so specifically, but basically what we had said is, if you've got a band 5 physio, what do they need to achieve by the end of 12 months to be able to be a competent, confident, practitioner and go and be free? And they're what formed our competencies. As I said, we held about 50 of them and spoke to between 150 and 200 staff. And these range from students all the way up to like senior, managers, heads of nursing, leads for allied health professionals. So we had a good range, and what we found is that there was 20 things that everybody was saying. So everybody was saying, for example, they need to be able to complete records. Everybody was saying, they need to be able to work towards policies and procedures. So they formed our trust-wide competencies. So we've got a set of 20 competencies that doesn't matter who you are, where you work, what you do, you have to complete these 20 competencies. Underneath that, we then had to look at our different divisions. As I said, we've got 4 different divisions, and we like to think that we're all very, very different. What we found is that actually we weren't that different at all, despite what we think and what we believe. So we have a couple of divisional competencies, and they were just, our high secure division needed a separate one for obvious reasons, and then anybody that works in community has a separate competency, and that's just about lone working and the lone working policy. And the most important ones are kind of underneath that. So underneath that is the discipline or service specific. So we spoke to a lot of different services, as I said, a lot of different professionals. And that's how we develop the competencies. So we've got competence, so we've got about 18 different sets of this paperwork. And, you know, that goes down to, so we'd have like inpatient OT, community OT competencies, ICRAS competencies, and it just depended on your team, where you worked, what them competencies looked like, and we review them every year. We've got set events for them to be reviewed and developed every year, so it's constantly ongoing. The way that we set up the paperwork is we wanted it to be really, really easy at point of use. That just sounds so complicated. So what I did, I spent a lot of time putting them together. So as a new starter, it'd be really, really easy to find. You could log on to the Trust intranet, and you literally click I work in inpatient, I'm in local division, I work in inpatient, so I'm an OT, and your full paperwork will come up. You don't need to be adding things or changing things. Everything's there for you. We just wanted to make it really, really easy to do. And they're all held on an electronic platform. The other aspect that we wanted to make sure was important was reflective practice and clinical supervision. So we have a log for that within the paperwork. And we wanted to make sure that everybody had a learning and development plan. What we didn't want is that people signed off competencies. It was a bit of a paper exercise. They gave them back to us at the end of 12 months. And then that was it. You know, we wanted, if people can complete competencies within 6 months, we want a clear pathway that we're going to, you know, continue to develop these people. That's not the end. We want to carry on. So to do this, we realised we needed really, really structured support and governance, what we'd previously lacked. And programs such as projects such as this tried to be started in the past, but there wasn't really any governance. And we've been really, really lucky that I'm full-time as a preceptorship development lead, and we also got a second preceptorship development lead employed. She started in post in November. So we've got that really tight governance between myself and Lindsay to be able to manage all of this. We also got backing from divisional leads, so we have 6 divisional leads at the moment that we can kind of filter information through and get information back. So that works really well. And then we have the line managers and the preceptors to be able to get all that support, and this is clearly explained to the preceptees. We've also got structured learning events for preceptors, so we wanted to make them feel important, we wanted to make them feel valued, we wanted to give them a reason to support preceptees. So we hold full day training for them. And half of that is the e-learning for health package, because that's already been developed, and the other half is kind of going through why, how, where Merseycare are, what we're doing, and just making them feel really valued. And it's the preceptors that help us shape, you know, the next 12 months, really. We invite every preceptor that comes to our training, we invite them to come to the yearly development and review to move this forward. And then we had a clear evaluation strategy and outcome measures. And they're really basic at the moment. So we only launched this in September last year, so it is basic numbers at the moment of how many people attended, how many people have left, but they're going to move on, and hopefully, you know, in 3 years down, we'll be able to compare the levers data for X, Y, and Z compared to now. We'll be able to, because we've got this governance now, we'll be able to track where the preceptees go, sorry. So who can join our programme? So the programme at Merseycare is open, as I said, to all allied health professionals, all nurses, all nurse associates, all internationally recruited professionals, although they do have to have the competence in the OSCEs done prior to coming on to this programme. All return to practice professionals who Merseycare is their first employment since joining the register, or that they've been on a professional register for less than 12 months. So if they've worked in a different trust and come to us prior to 12 months, they'll be automatically enrolled onto the programme. We have got some outliers, so we will assess on a case-by-case basis for staff members who would possibly benefit from joining the programme, but they don't fall into any of the above categories. So that could be people that commenced post and then went off sick, went on maternity leave, they've had a significant thing happen. We're not including COVID in that, obviously, because we'd have hundreds and hundreds of people on the programme. But we will kind of assess on a case-by-case basis on who can come to the programme. And we run the programme 3 times per year, and that's in line with the university graduation dates, and that's generally aimed at nurses, because I know most allied health professionals tend to finish in September. So we have a big one in September, and then we run an induction in January and also in May, just to kind of catch up. Anybody that falls out of them times, we will either, so in September, for example, we had about 30 people that missed the original induction, so we ran a catch up. If there's 1 or 2, we just kind of run it on a case-by-case basis, whether they'd have to wait to the next one, or whether we will catch them up on the programme before. And the programme is for 12 months. So if they start in September, they will finish in the end of the next August. So as I said, we launched this in September, so that was our first cohort. So we've got 73 preceptees enrolled onto that programme, and 12% of them are allied health professionals, and that's across the board. What we do know is that isn't indicative of what Merseycare actually holds, and I'll come on to that. We've had a lot of issues regarding identifying who these people are on recruitment, so we're having to scrabble around trying to like beg, steal and borrow names, really, and that's kind of a systems issue, but I'll come on to that in our risk a little bit later. We've got 18 different preceptorship portfolios, and that's growing every day. Really, people contact me and say, oh, we're from this team, we just got a new starter, and we'll work with them and create that bespoke to them. As I said, we completed 1 full induction and 1 catch-up induction, and we've got the 12 monthly rolling training sessions that have been developed. We also offer monthly drop-in support sessions. So every month, myself and Lindsay, unfortunately on Teams, we'll sit on Teams, and people will just drop in if they've got any issues. Of course, we'll offer support outside of that, but if anybody needs anything on that, specifically on that day, and is happy to wait, they will come to them sessions. We've set up peer support groups, so we've managed to use technology, and on the initial induction, we managed to get people into groups, like split up groups, and we've put them into a Teams group to get a Teams communication channel together so they can all talk. And we have a big Teams channel for all of us, with myself and Lindsay being the only staff members on there that aren't preceptees. So it's quite a safe place for people to talk and put things. We put articles and things in there. We've got a wide range of supporting documents for them that are all on our intranet. And we've got an induction evaluation that was really, really positive, and people really felt valued and felt that was a really good thing for them to have and to happen, albeit we have to do it on Teams, which was one of the most negative, well, the most common negative that we got is that it was on Teams and they would have much rather it face to face, but unfortunately, that just wasn't possible. And we've completed our first quarterly report, so that was for the September, October and November period. And these are just some of the highlights. So in that first 3 months, we didn't have any preceptees leave. Previously, there's not been a way of capturing data, so I don't know what the difference is of that is between the year before, but we had no leave, so I'm taking that as a win. The biggest thing that we provided over 22 hours of one-to-one support, and that was both to preceptees and preceptors, and that ranged from just support with paperwork to massive, safeguarding issues that we've had to support with, and that's really been valued. We've had some people say, comments such as, throughout my 3 years of training, I've never felt as supported as I have done now. I was going to leave, but now I know that there's somebody else. We're okay. So it's been really, really valuable that. So we've had 9 staff have completed the approved preceptor development training, which doesn't sound a lot, but we have only run 1 session, so it's not too bad. The second preceptorship lead started in post, and we started working closely with our Trust AHP Workforce project lead, who's on the call. I think I saw Jean come on earlier, and that's been really, really useful. I'm very conscious that I am a mental health nurse, so although we try to include everybody, it's just really useful that we have this now, and we've got that link. And we've got 2 really good case studies that I've not put on here because they've not been written up properly, but one of them is about from a manager's perspective who received the support and actually we really valued our support and intervention. And another one's from a nurse who was really struggling, who was now kind of just turned it around, and she was at the point of probably going down fitness to practice, and now she's back to work. So that's a really good case study. So some of our risks that we've had, so our communication strategy, because of the size of Merseycare, getting the programme out and to seem important has been really difficult. We've had massive backing, as I said before, from the board, from our heads of nursing, from our leads, but getting it down to kind of clinical team level has been really difficult. I was saying to Jenny earlier on, I was waiting for you to go on the call, we've worked really hard to get preceptorship to be seen as important, and a lot of the time we're kind of the first thing to go, whereas we really need to kind of change. It's a bit of a culture change, really. We need to change the culture that actually, if we invest in our preceptees now, that is our future workforce and they're our future leaders. And so that's a bit of a risk. As I said, the identification of preceptees at recruitment stage, that's been really difficult, and we haven't been able to. Well, we're almost got a process in place, but how we've been able for September and for the January cohort we're running in a couple of weeks, we've literally had to just email people asking for names, who are your new starters, where are they coming from, or we get a list the week before that people are starting. So it's been really difficult to try to capture that, and that was one of the feedback from the preceptees that we got, is actually they knew nothing about it until we kind of just contacted them a week before, because we'd been randomly given the name. So then it was kind of getting the time off. That was really difficult, and it just wasn't a great first impression that it was all a bit slapdash, which it really wasn't. But that's how it was perceived. So we want to link the learning and development and syncing with ESR. I'm sure we all know that ESR is amazing, but it's also a nightmare for some things that we want to do. So we need to work with them to kind of work out how we're going to have this as a competency. At the moment, it isn't recorded within ESR. This is recorded in the preceptorship team's kind of records, and we want that linked with ESR. So if people were to move roles or whatever, it's within ESR and it's a competency that they can achieve. So the supernumerary status, what we found is that although in the policy we'd stated and it had been agreed that they'd have 4 weeks supernumerary period on commencement of post, that wasn't happening. And there's many reasons for this. And when we set that up, we knew that was going to be probably one of the sticking points. But I think the main thing that we found from this is that people don't really understand what supernumerary means and perceive it as that they're not working. And it's just kind of that communication strategy that's not the case. Supernumerary means that you're not counted within safer staffing numbers. It's not that you're not working. And as I said before, preceptee engagement, we have struggled with that as I said, for a number of reasons. People not being able to get released, people saying that they didn't know, people just being bored of Teams, people not really wanting to talk to us. But on the last session that we did, which was the training session after we changed them from the action learning sets, that had been really useful. And I think we got like 75% of the preceptees attended them sessions. So that was really good. So our next steps, so we're hoping to get the documentation onto PAR. I know not everybody's using that for students yet, but there's a Northwest group trying piloting that at the moment. We didn't involve ourselves within the pilot purely because we just felt all this work was going on. It would probably just be a little bit too much, but that then holds its own reporting systems, so it'd be a lot easier for reporting. As I said, we're introducing talent spotting conversations. So these are going to take place at 6 and 9 months. So at 6 months, it's going to be a very basic conversation with myself or Lindsay, and we'll just talk about, how's the past 6 months going, where did they see themselves? And then at 9 months, that's going to be a conversation by somebody of 8A or above that works within that area and knows kind of the opportunities. And that'll be about looking into the future. What do they want? How do we develop these people? And again, that'll lead on to further development packages. I said, like band 5 to 6 development packages, new to us development teams, and we're working on them now. So bespoke training packages. So a lot of the teams have said to us that what they actually want is when you start in a crash team, for example, you need X, Y, and Z training. So they want that to be delivered as part of the preceptorship programme. So we're working with L&D to try and do that, so it all comes under our umbrella rather than people having to go off and source training on their own. And ongoing evaluation and development, as I said, this programme is only as good as people are making it and people are engaging in it. What we wanted, back in August last year, we kind of hoped that would be about 60% right when we started. What we found in September, that we were probably, 50. By November, we were probably 30% right. And we're constantly trying to review that and change it and get it made and get it, to kind of fit within the clinical teams. Things are changing constantly, just look at what's happening now. I was just saying, I'm probably being redeployed, things are happening. So it's just how we mobilise that and continue this momentum that we've got, in that the preceptees are supported. At the moment, the best thing is that the preceptees are coming to us. If they've got an issue, they're coming to us. We kind of don't want to lose that. And that's basically it, really. So as I said, I left it deliberately broad and hoping that I can kind of help you with questions, really.
Thanks, Nicola. That was really great. Thank you. Lots of things to think about there. Really, Nicola's put some contacts on the screen.
Yeah,
if people to get in touch with her. Obviously, Nicola, that's going to be very sad if you redeployed. Would that be a short period of time? Are you still able to answer questions?
Yeah, I'm hoping it's going to be short. We're just really struggling over in Merseycare, so I'm hoping it may be like part-time. But we'll see. But clinical staff come first, don't they? And I'll badger people while I'm on redeployment, so it'll be fine.
Okay, thank you. And I should just add, Nicola, you were happy to share your slides, I think, weren't you?
Yeah, I'll send them over to you, Jenny, if you want, and then
yeah, okay, all right, I should have said that at the beginning. Okay, thank you. Right, so we've got quite a few hands up. I'll try to work through them as I see them. That's great. So Laura, I've got you first. Would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, thanks, Jenny. Nicola, thanks, that was great. And I suppose we're kind of at the start of it all, and I think it's reassuring that it's not a quick process. It sounds like it's taken you a while and it's still going, so I think that's really reassuring. But I just wondered, are you happy to share any of your documentation, the trust-wide competencies, in the nicest possible way, just to save us going through it all and just having something to start with? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. I can share that with you. I'll share anything I've got with the policy. Hasn't been ratified yet, so I can't share that just yet, but I will when I can. But I can share that with you. We've got a booklet that kind of talks through about the exact process, what happens each month, so I can share that. I'll send that along with the slides. But yeah, it's not an easy process. It's not a quick process. It's really, really difficult, but it's so worth it at the end. Really, really is.
I think we've done a lot of the baseline work and met with and we've got very similar themes to what you've said. I just think the enormity of it where we currently are, anything that helps say, well, actually Merseycare have already done it, so we could have just amended it. I just think it'd help us push it through a bit quicker here.
Yeah.
And the only other question I had was the preceptorship leads, are they a band 7 role, and do you have a job description again that you'd be happy to share?
I can share that. And I was going to say, I think that is the kind of sticking point with this, how we've managed to do it, is that we've had that designated person.
Yeah.
And, we didn't have any, just because this may come up, we didn't have any extra funding for that. That's through the CPD money that's been funded. And it is, they are fixed term roles. And I think, what you're saying, people and the board kind of underestimated the amount of work to go into this, and it was kind of, you say it was 6 months, preceptorship's done now, and it just isn't that at all. It's just massive.
We've done exactly the same. We've recruited 3 preceptorship champions from midwifery, nursing and AHP on 2 days a week till the end of March against CPD funding, and I think they're thinking, oh my god, I'm not going to box this off by then. And so I think it's definitely a longer term thing.
So I'll send all of that over to Jenny.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
So just following on from that then, Nicola, how do the board then see it rolling out forwards beyond that if they're fixed term contracts? Is it education? Is it PEFs? I
think that's the answer. I don't think they've thought so it's kind of a role that keeps saying, oh, and it will be it's one of them roles, and it will be permanent, and it will be permanent. So we're both in post until my original contract was due to end in March, and I've been extended now until December. Okay. So it's rolling. And I think one of the things that we're trying to do is just see the value. So we're going to put a business case together at the moment, prior to that November deadline to push this forward, because it does need to be full time. And I think what we found actually is that the governance is the most important. If there's nobody at the head of this, it just all falls apart. So we'll see.
Thank you. Sharon, you got your hand up.
Hello, Nicola. Thanks very much. I thought that was brilliant, really informative. I've just got a few practical questions. So is the preceptor at Merseycare on the same banding as the preceptee or not really?
So it depends on each team. So what we did, that was one of the questions when we held the workshops, that's what we asked. So when we had like team leaders on, we'd say, who would be your preceptors? And it really varied. So some teams would definitely only ever be a band 6. Some teams were like, you know what, it could be somebody that's only qualified 12 months ago, because that's all that we've got. So it really doesn't, it really depends. It could be the same band, it could be band high, it could be the line manager. It really doesn't matter, and we've not set anything for that. And equally, we haven't said that the preceptor training is mandatory. So although the preceptorship package, that's mandatory for every preceptee, for the preceptors it's not mandatory to attend that training. And the reason we've done that is purely because of the time frames. There was just no way by September we'd have got every preceptor through that training, ready for a big massive September launch. And as I said, what we've got on that 73 really isn't indicative. I think we've probably got about 300 in the trust. We've just not found them. So again, it's just this ongoing process, isn't it, of trying to locate people. But hopefully once we've got the recruitment thing sorted, it'll be all right.
Thank you. And also, I guess you're flexible on this as well. So does the preceptor have to be from the same profession?
Again, no. So in some teams, no is just the basic answer. It doesn't matter. As long as they feel comfortable to validate competencies, then it doesn't matter whether they're from the same profession or not. Obviously, it'd probably be a little bit better if they were, but it doesn't really matter. What we wanted to do with this programme, when we set up the competencies, we wanted to go away from that kind of age-old thing of you have to be joined at the hip with your preceptor. We didn't want people to have to be walking around hand in hand to get things validated. So we've really put the onus on the preceptee rather than the preceptor. So we've changed our documentation. I should have said this in the slide, sorry. We changed our documentation from the preceptee to I. So all of our competencies are I statements. So what we've said with that is that the preceptee, so for example, it's like, I can conform to infection control policies and procedures, for example. So they would go and do whatever they need to do that. So it could be that they talk with infection control. It could just be that they write a case study because they walked onto a ward and they put a mask on and they barrier nursed somebody or whatever they did, and they can write a case study. So then they can go and present that to the preceptor. And as long as all them, as long as the preceptee and the preceptor are happy, then that just gets validated. So rather than signing off, and of course there's some things that we need to watch, clinical skills and things like that needs to be observed, but we just left it a little bit more broad, a little bit more open to interpretation. So the preceptee can, rather than the preceptor, I've been that preceptor chasing them, we done this, let's go and do this together. So rather than a tick box exercise, it's a constant learning. And with the competencies as well, what we did is, rather than having to sign off a full set of competencies to say, oh yeah, you can go and do that now, each competency is an individual. So once you've had that one validated, that just becomes part of your everyday practice. And that obviously becomes important with things like holding a caseload, doing assessments. Once you can do that, you just go away and do that. And of course, there's always room for learning, but that's your everyday practice. Then you've been signed off. You don't need to do the full programme. So as I said, you can complete all competencies by 6 months. Realistically, somebody probably could, but you're still in preceptorship. And if you take 12 months, that's all right. It doesn't matter. You've got that full 12 months. But after the 6 months, what we've said to the preceptees and the preceptors that are coming the training, at that point, what is the next step? So these are these are all the absolute must-dos. What could they do? You know, what should they do? And that forms the rest of the 12 months. We don't want people just, you know, we don't want people finishing at 6 months and sitting thinking, well, I'm still a preceptor, I'll do nothing. Like, but equally, we don't want people to wait till month 11 and get everything signed off. So we've kind of hopefully made it as a bit of a seamless, ongoing learning process.
Thank you.
But we'll only find that out in 12 months, probably.
Thanks, Nicola.
Thanks, Sharon. Verity.
Hi, Nicola. Thank you so much. That was really, really, really useful to listen to. The rolling programme that you've designed, because we've changed our programme quite a lot lately, and actually getting people to attend the sessions has been quite tricky. They complain that they're not relevant for them, they're relevant or not relevant. Even if it's against the Northwest framework, we've found there's still some professions saying, well, no, this isn't for us. Have you had that? Do they have to attend the sessions, or is it completely not a choice as long as they complete the competences?
So yeah, so the training isn't mandatory. They don't have to attend. We strongly encourage them to attend. And some of the things we've kind of done is, as I said, we've really split it down. So as I say, care planning and roles and responsibilities is one. So rather than get one session and bring everybody in, we run 4 different sessions on care planning with 4 different facilitators. So hopefully it would be relevant to them. But also what we've done is we've just taken to the art of badgering. So 2 weeks before, we'll email everybody and say, just a reminder. A week before, we'll email everybody again. And that was kind of the best option, just the art of badgering. But we do get a lot of, you know, it's not relevant to me. And equally, we get a lot of when people even do attend the sessions, they're clearly not there. You know, you've just got initials, and it has been really difficult. And I think in better times when you could go face to face, it'd probably be a little bit easier. But it's just really hard to gauge that engagement, isn't it? When people turn up, you've just got initials.
No, that's brilliant. And then obviously, due to COVID, a wonderful thing, we've got a bit of a backlog of people to get through. That's been one of our biggest issues we've found. There's a lot of people who actually haven't had any training. I think that's what you said at the beginning. It's a really difficult time, isn't it? Because we have got a chunk of staff that didn't get the support necessarily, and they're all now wanting to come on to all the training, which has sent our numbers slightly through the roof. But then we're finding that there's that many on a call that actually it's affecting the training session. So you're having to just have you put on extra sessions to clear a backlog, or have you just not got a backlog like that?
We have got a backlog, but what we've just done the same and said, you can come to the, you know, you're not on the programme, not a preceptee, come to the training. But I think because we've been able to split them up so much, it's not been that bad. So I think the most that we've had is maybe about, I think one of the calls we had about 60 on one, and that was just on one of them, but it wasn't that bad. But again, it just gets really difficult, doesn't it, on Teams when you can't monitor that many people. And I don't know how many there is of you guys, but when I was on my own, you know, Lindsay's really, really new. She only started in November. It was just so difficult, and you split them off into groups and you'd spend 3 hours just trying to hop into each group. So it's really hard, but.
No, that's brilliant. That answers my question.
I think I've not got an answer. Do you just not?
No, but it's sort of, yeah, no, it's the same position when I'm sort of started. So that's absolutely really useful. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks, Verity. Nisha.
Hi, Nicola. Thank you very much. That was really useful. My questions probably are around the preceptor training. So in some of the AHPs, they've got a quite strong sort of model of supervision. So I guess my question was, is the supervisor different from the preceptor? As in, is it the same person who's actually signing off their clinical competencies who's also their preceptor? Or have you found that they have to be different people just because of the nature of the kind of queries that people might bring up?
Again, it doesn't really matter. So it's been on a team by team basis, really. So some people have thought, oh, well, that works, and the clinical supervisor will kind of just carry it on, and they'll maybe, and how they've done it is they'll have the clinical supervision session and either before or after, but make sure it's very separate so it doesn't impede on that clinical supervision, but it's part of that conversation. That makes sense, but it's very separate. We'll then have the meeting, and others have changed it to be a little bit different. I think what me and Lindsay offer is a lot of pastoral support as well. So when people have them difficult, you know, if they're having an issue in practice don't feel they can go to the clinical supervisor, they can't go to the preceptor because it's the same person, they'll kind of come to us and we'll just kind of politely, you know, intervene and be able to sort them out. So it's been lucky to be able to do that. But yeah, it's just been on a team by team decision really on what people want to do.
Okay.
And we've not got enough data at the moment to say which works better or worse.
Sure. And your preceptor training, again, do you have sort of a framework for that you could share? I mean, you mentioned the e-learning for health module. Is there anything that you've got written in a slide to say what kind of things you cover in that?
So the e-learning for health is on ESR or the clinical skills, and it covers basically everything about like supporting learners in practice, supporting adults in learning, things like that. That is, it's a long time. It's quite tough. I would encourage you all to do it if you know, like we've all got a spare 4 hours, but it does, you know, it does take a long time. It is really in depth, but that is being reviewed at the moment because it's got quite a lot of old language in it. I've done it, and it's all right. Like, you know, it's all right as part of the Northwest. I don't know what the group's called, Community Preceptorship Practice Group or something. That's got a really long title. We've kind of decided that that's what we would say, you know, as a Northwest, we would say that our preceptors should complete that.
Okay.
But it is definitely being reviewed at the moment. And the slides that we do probably wouldn't be worth sharing because they're just really focused on Merseycare and Merseycare's divisions and how we've run. And we don't go into any of the theory on supporting learners because that's all in.
It's all on there.
E-learning for health module, yeah.
Okay, and my last question really is, I'm guessing when you mentioned the structured training events that you do, those are for those generic topics of, say, QI, resilience, and they don't look at particularly clinical skills, etc. Is that right? Is that more tackled in
Yeah, so they don't look at any clinical skills, but we are hoping to work on that in the future. So people have really wanted that as part of the preceptorship offer. So. And it makes sense, doesn't it, that, you know, I turn up on day one and say, this is your preceptorship programme, and you get a year's worth of dates. And in September, you go in doing this training, then you're doing this training, and this is your preceptorship date. So that's what we want to offer.
Okay.
But we're just not quite there yet. And I talk about time frames, you know, and it's because, you know, we had April to September, and that seemed like an eternity to get all of this in. And when we started working, it really, really wasn't. And then COVID hit, and then COVID hit again, and then COVID again. So it's just been a bit of a nightmare, and people change jobs. But that's where we'll probably by next September, we'd hope to have that in place.
That's great. Thank you so much.
No worries, thank you.
Thanks, Nisha. John, did you have a question?
Hi, Nick.
Hiya.
Hiya. Just around sort of AHPs and their preceptorship. So a problem we've come across with sort of the AHP preceptorship is quite a lot of the newly qualified practitioners have rotational posts. So with regards to them having a preceptor, how do you guys get around that? Because I know it's been something that's been asked a few times as to whether they have the same preceptor for the 12 months or whether it changes with the rotational post.
So we change with the rotation.
Okay.
So they'll start the post, and then it's generally 6 months in Merseycare. I'm assuming it's probably the same where you are. And then when they rotate, they'll get another preceptor. We have said that on them rotational posts that what people should do is there should be a kind of, it sounds awful saying it like this, but a bit of a handover period. So they'll all get together. It wouldn't be one preceptor talking to another, you know, like, oh, have you seen what John does? It would be, you know, a collaborative conversation. The preceptor would be involved, and it'd just be passed everything over. Once things go on to ESR and there's competencies and you know, and things and skills set up for this, I think that'll be a lot more seamless.
Right.
The record will go with them rather than a paper document, but at the moment just take that with them and they change the preceptor.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Does anybody else have any more questions? I don't have any more hands up currently. No. Okay. I've got a bit of a question, and it's about sort of you mentioned in the risks about being able to identify at recruitment stage people that are coming into the organisation, and I'm wondering if what support you've had from recruitment around that, because obviously sometimes it's relying on appointing managers or leaders, but just is recruitment involved in that process?
Yeah, so recruitment, it's been a massive it's a real bugbear of mine. So this is something on day one, 1st of April last year, I was like, how do we know where these people are? Massive safety risk. We could have teams that are running on 70% preceptees and we don't even know. So that was, so this is almost a year in the making. And so we have had recruitment involved. There is a process. So we've got a process, and it's unfortunately relying on humans at the moment, and Merseycare just isn't integrated enough right now. So we currently have 2 recruitment teams working together but separately. So the process is that within Track there's a system that you can tick to put people on a preceptorship induction list, and then that automatically generates an email. That list goes to whoever. It's not coming to me. So that list isn't happening. So that requires the human to tick the list, and that's being ticked if somebody, they will physically check whether they're less than 12 months qualified, or whether, if university is a reference, it's likely that they need to come on the preceptorship program. So that exists, and it's quite, it sounds like quite a good process, but we're just really struggling with how and why that isn't coming to us. That doesn't link with ESR, which is absolutely fine, but it's just really difficult. We have had support, but it's just been really hard. And once we get that, and I think it's just the real sticking point, that because once we get that, we'll know people kind of 4 or 5 weeks in advance. We can email them the dates, we can email the line manager, everything can be in place, and it would just be such a seamless transition. Whereas now it just doesn't really make sense. And even now, as I'm just talking, I've just had an email. Good morning. I've had an email from the recruitment team saying I'm preceptorship. So this email's still going out, but it's got the wrong dates on it. Doesn't make any sense. And it's just that issue with the teams aren't alike. It's just a bit of an issue. But hopefully we'll get there.
Thanks. Apologies, I'm having a sneezing fit at the moment. I'm so sorry. Just a second. My other question then about recruitment was whether you are, as an organisation, going to advertise, put in the adverts that you've got this sort of very active preceptorship programme. I'm thinking about, attracting people to your organisation. Yeah,
so I think we are. The answer is yeah. I think we will be doing this, particularly on the trust-wide recruitments that we're doing. We are going. Well, we were able to go to a couple of kind of recruitment events that we did, and that was just more of, when we've got a day where we're interviewing newly qualified, we would go and we would stand and we'd have a little stand and we'd talk to them. So yeah, we are going to advertise it. At the moment, when you see the paperwork, it's not very glossy, it's not very exciting. It's a piece of paper with a grid on it with competencies. So we're working with comms to make that a bit more jazzy, to make it a little bit more attractive, which shouldn't matter because the content will be the same, but it does, doesn't it? So yeah, we will be using it as a recruitment point.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any more questions? Sharon.
Hi. Yeah, I just thought, are you aware of any AHP bodies that have a requirement in their professional standards for preceptorship? So or competencies? Because I think speech and language therapy has some newly qualified competencies, but what do you know, Nicola?
So the only one I know of is speech and language. So what we've done with them is, because we want them to, for kind of governance purposes, we want them to fill in our paperwork, which is a bit selfish, but we want them to do that so we can track them. So what we've said is that the speech and language competencies take precedence. They fill that in, and then in our paperwork, and we've kind of matched them, and they're worded differently, but they're exactly the same. So what we've said is that in our documentation, they would just write C speech and language framework, C speech and language framework. That's the only profession that I know of that we've come across that have their own competencies, and they, like as you say, they are set and they take precedence, and we're quite clear that they take precedence. But rather than make loads of extra work, they just have to do the they just have to kind of put it across. Oh, dietetics have a preceptorship framework, David's just said. See, at the moment, they're doing our competencies. Is the competencies in that, David? Don't know, really hard on here.
Hi, Nicola. Yeah, I think so. There's quite a structured program. I've not fully looked into it just yet, but yeah, I think there are competencies within that. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting, because we had a few dietitians who were really on board and never mentioned that, and I think we've got 4 or 5 of them on the programme. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other questions for Nicola? Probably not at this stage. I just wondered whether anybody else on the call wanted to share where their organisation was at. I know Laura's obviously spoken about East Cheshire, Verity's Mid Cheshire. They've got a programme going, but I just wondered if anyone else wanted to share where they were at. There's obviously some, Nisha, yep.
Hello, I'll share a bit. We're working with John, who's on the call, a Trust Preceptorship lead, just to look at the Preceptorship program becoming sort of more relevant for our AHPs. We've got a fantastic program already. It's multi-professional, but it's just maybe looking at the timings and the structures of the sessions themselves, so they can be more AHP relevant as well. I guess the challenge for us is raising awareness about the Preceptorship program, certainly because our staff at the minute don't completely get it, and something around preceptor training as well. Also managing preceptee expectations, because whether people are expecting that all their clinical competencies will be signed off or they'll be taught clinical skills. So it's kind of making sure that they understand what the Preceptorship program is about. So awareness, certainly. And I think we've had the same challenge around how do we know who our preceptees are. So I think John will definitely tell you more about that. He's more knowledgeable, but that's where sort of we are. So we're hoping to put together a work stream with the various AHP representatives who work with the Preceptorship team to actually look at that program in a bit more detail.
Hi, thanks for that, Nisha. Yeah, just to second what Nisha said, really, we do seem to be having like the same problems that other trusts are having with regards to sort of the streams that preceptees are coming in. There seems to be quite a few different streams, and we're just trying to work with Workforce at the minute just to sort of unify and just try and make it into one sort of stream. Because we do find ourselves sort of checking in with different databases almost weekly, just to try and keep a hold on new staff coming in. Yeah, the preceptorship package we've got, it does seem to be it's quite well established. I've only recently taken over from one of my colleagues who's moved on to another role, but I was quite impressed, coming from sort of my background is mental health, into sort of a general trust. There's quite a robust sort of preceptorship package we've got going, but I think the focus for us at the minute is definitely to get an increase in the involvement of the AHPs, because it does tend to be that we do have quite a lot of nursing colleagues and only a minority of AHPs at the minute. So that is definitely one of our focuses, at least for the next 6 months, I think, just to try and increase that and make we do call it a multi-professional preceptorship, but we're just going to try and sort of beef that up a little bit, just try and get some of our preceptees have a preceptorship fortnight where they get 2 weeks out of practice, not long after they join us. The first week is geared up for both nursing and AHP colleagues together, but the second week is very, very specifically for our nursing colleagues, in which they get dedicated teaching for clinical skills and other aspects that are more suitable to them. But we are definitely looking at doing something very similar for the AHP colleagues. So just looking, if anybody's got any ideas as to what you offer your AHPs, that'd be great. I'd look forward to hearing them. But yeah, that's basically our Preceptorship package. It is a bit more extensive. We do have sort of different review points within the 12 months. They have dedicated time in simulation training. Clinical supervision is something that goes throughout. It goes hand in hand with our Preceptorship package. But yeah, okay.
And John, do you find that, so that 2 weeks that people are sort of coming out of practice to do that, is that supported generally? Is it difficult? I guess this is part of the issue, isn't it, that Nicholas described as well with the 4 weeks?
Yeah. The Preceptorship fortnight is generally well attended from both nursing and AHP alike. As we do go past that and on into practice, obviously this time of year with obviously the pressures that everybody feels, we do see some of the sessions tend to tail off. I did have a simulation session booked for today, and unfortunately I've only had one preceptee out of 5 show up for that. So it's quite disheartening and disappointing when that happens, but obviously those people obviously haven't been released from practice for today. So that's just something that we need to trace up. I know, Nick, you said your policy hasn't yet been ratified. If anyone does want to have a look at our policy, ours has been ratified and was reviewed I think it was last year. So I'm happy to share that if anybody would like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
John, do you want to email that to me, and then I can add it all to a email to everybody back with the links and things.
Yeah, that's not a problem. Just going back to your original question as well, Jenny, I'm part of the clinical education team over here at Warrington. We do have quite a big team, and we do have educators out in practice as well. They usually do fulfil the role of the preceptor, and so they link in quite well with the line managers, ward managers, things like that, and they do advocate for our preceptees to make sure that they are attending the preceptorship days. So that's quite good that we do have. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And just to sort of repeat John's question there, really, I guess a lot of this is about the multi-professional framework for preceptorship, but for AHPs there may be some differences, and some of the feedback you're getting is around, well, this doesn't really, it's not relevant to me, kind of thing. Are there any sessions that any of you run that you would classify as more AHP specific, or does it then sort of drill down even into the different disciplines or groups within AHPs? Laura?
I think the only thing we have that's very specific is more in the professions and the areas. So take MSK, for example, they have a really structured programme. It's quite an easy area to be relatively structured in. So yeah, other than that, no.
Yeah, that would echo my experience that certain areas like MSK do have quite a structured approach. Lauren, sorry, did you want to come in?
Hi, yes, thanks. So I'm quite new in my role. I'm currently head of multi-professional education at Liverpool University Hospital. So it's actually a good opportunity because preceptorship falls under my portfolio now. So I'm learning. It's been great to hear everyone speaking, but that's something I'm particularly interested in. I'm a pharmacist by background, so really focused on this multi-professional approach that we should be taking. And that's one thing we've been looking at. We're going to be revamping the entire programme. And I'm particularly interested to see, well, what bespoke training should we be offering our AHPs? So I've got a couple of other colleagues on the call. That's one thing that we are going to be looking at. My ambition is that we review the entire programme. As you may all well be aware, Royal and Aintree merged. So our numbers are through the roof. So what was working previously, not working quite so well, perhaps for a merged organisation. And perhaps with a significant nursing approach rather than really thinking truly multi-professional.
LAF.UENTE-GOD.
Has somebody got a microphone on that we can? No.
I had a panic then that it might be me, but I don't think it was. So yes, I might be in touch with some colleagues that were on the call, because I think there's a lot of good practice and a lot of the same things. Recruitment being the absolute nightmare situation to try and find out who actually is even supposed to be on programme, where are they now, what training have they had. So I think there's a lot of similar themes going through, and if anybody does actually resolve any of those issues, it would be great to share that amongst the groups so that we can really try and bottom that out. So I'll be in touch with a couple of you. I hope you don't mind. Thank you very much.
That's great to hear, Lauren. Thank you for that. I've got Verity. Do you want to come back in?
Yeah, when we've come up with our programme, we sent it out to the HPs and they requested that we had put patient first approaches into it. So we've actually got some sessions being run by the physios to every member of our preceptorship team, so that are very focused more on what they requested as a AHP group, what they felt would be useful in that. So that they were the only things that there was a couple of things that they came up with, but it wasn't any other set sessions, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's good though. It's good to hear that they've come up with some ideas. Nisha?
It was just a thought, really, Jenny, whether there is the theme around, what is good for AHPs to kind of have specific for themselves seems to be, all our issue. I don't want to call it issue, but it's a theme, isn't it? And I wondered if there is any opportunity for collaborative working here to actually, come together as a group to say, this is something that, say, therapies would benefit. This is something our orthoptists would want. This is something our radiographers would want, and kind of bring that together as a system almost. So straight away I'm thinking, sort of home first or discharge to assess. That sort of thing will be very relevant for most therapists, for example. It was just a thought just from listening to everyone.
Yeah, I agree, Nisha. I was just sitting listening to a few of you thinking that what Lauren was saying about the ESR link, and if people move around, and if how do we record the training that they've done, and how do you pick up when people start in organisations? And yeah, I was thinking there might be some work here. Certainly the faculty has. We on the call we have, so Dave Aspinall, who spoke previously about the dietetics, he's one of, I'm just introducing you, Dave, he's one of our new project managers in the faculty. He started last week, along with Charlotte Golson, who's also on the call. Charlotte, many of you may know from previous faculty work. Preceptorship is one of the work streams that the faculty will be looking at this year. Some of it obviously is about yourselves and the organisations delivering things within your trusts, but I do think there are some themes coming out today that potentially the faculty can have a look at bringing together into some sort of work stream. So we do have the multi-professional framework, but what in terms of engaging with AHPs, that's going back to something Nicola said earlier on about getting down into the clinical level of teams. How do we get people engaged and understanding that? And I'm wondering if there's some work there. So Dave and Charlotte, we probably need to have some further conversations about that outside this group. Nicola, I know you've got your hand up. Did you want to?
Yeah, sorry, it's not really a question. I just something it thought came to me when Lauren was talking. So we do have the Cheshire and Mersey Preceptorship group. Now we meet 4 weekly, some of you monthly. Sorry, some of you may be aware of it, but we don't have a lot of AHP representative. There is some people that come in, but if you do want to attend that would be amazing. It's a really good group to kind of bring things together and work through. And we're kind of back at the beginning because it stopped because of COVID. So it'd be really useful for people to come along, especially if you're like new in post, and we can talk about these ideas, can't we? I think what's important that we do kind of get a bit standardised, don't we? Not in that we're all doing the same thing, but just that we're all offering similar things, or if we've got good practice to share them. So
Nicola, can you remind me who runs that meeting? I think I've been to it.
It's Joe Sullivan and Joe Inman. Jenny Hurst is the chair, and John Goodenough. Oh,
this is Joe. This is the there was a Merseyside nursing.
The survey has gone out, but it's not just for nursing. We're hoping to open it. So we don't have a lot of members. Got about 10 to 12, but anybody that wants to join is more than welcome.
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you. I'm just aware of the time, and there's a few minutes left. In terms of moving forward, are there any actions that this wasn't meant to be an action group, but I'm just wondering if there are some themes that we can pull out that potentially we can move forward with in a particular way. Does anyone have any thoughts about that? I've picked up about recruitment and ESR and AHP issues.
Jenny, sorry, it's me again. When you say AHP issues, would it be useful to say what that means at this stage?
Yeah, what I was meaning, Nisha, is that the needs of AHPs in the preceptorship programme, are there specific areas that might be required, or is it down to the different like with MSK, would they have an additional layer on top in terms of that organisational approach to preceptorship as opposed to down in a department? Is there any areas like that that could be addressed or looked at?
Okay, thank you.
I know, Nicola, that group that you're talking about, a couple of us have been to that on occasion, and there has been some AHP involvement, but not probably a great deal. Did that come up with anything, that preceptorship group?
So as I said, we've kind of gone back to the beginning. So I know it was set up pre-COVID. I think Sarah Sumner, who John has taken and is doing her job, was really involved in that, and then it dropped off because of COVID, and then the last few meetings haven't gone ahead. So we really are like back at the beginning. We've created terms of reference. We're just looking. The last two meetings we cancelled. One was due for Friday. I know John has gone working elsewhere, so kind of Jenny's taken over, but I am conscious, and I think it's because I'm a mental health nurse, that it is very nursing focused, and like you say, there has been some, so we could get some AHPs. It just takes it away, doesn't it, and brings it back to the AHPs. It's really easy to just get focused on nursing, isn't it, when that's your background. But yeah, so we've not really got anything, and we're kind of just looking where we're up to, what we're doing. I know that there's a survey just gone out. It closes today, actually. I don't know when anyone's had that, and it was just a bit of a scoping exercise about what's offered in your trust. I don't think there was many responses. I think on Friday there was like 4 trusts that had responded. So if you have had that, it'd be really interesting to fill it out and just see where we are.
So that survey had 5 responses, Nicola. I did get sent it and asked to forward it round to the AHP leads, which I did late last week because I was on leave and I'd only just
I think it ended up coming back to me from you.
Okay. The other thing just about that group is it is part of a programme that currently, and I'm not sure where it's up to, but the funding for that programme actually runs out at the end of March. So whether it's going to continue beyond the end of March, I'm not sure. As I say, certainly in the faculty, we're looking at how we participate in that. But beyond that, what might we do? So I think we might need to watch the space and see what happens with that programme. Okay. Does anybody have any other comments or conversation or discussion they want to bring up this morning? I think there's been a lot to think about there, and it does feel, based on a few comments, including from Nicola, that having that sort of high level support within the organisation does seem to be quite critical. I think the other thing that's interesting is that I mean, Nicola, you've obviously done an awful lot of work to get to the point that you're at the moment, and the fact that you've been in the role solely doing, you know, that it hasn't been on top of a day job. I think that's really important, isn't it? I think that comes across, that you need dedicated time to do it, because it's a massive thing. The fact that you started off with 35 different programs to review, and you know, you tried to bring it into one and then realize it doesn't work, and then you end up with sort of 18 sets of competencies. It's really, I'm hoping other people on the call will realize that you're not on your own, perhaps with some of the challenges around that. But it does feel that it's very useful to have a dedicated role, and what the value, how the demonstrating the value of that and how to move that forward in organisations. That may be a challenge for people. Certainly, I know some of you here will be involved in looking at the workforce strategies in your organisation, and perhaps that's something that we really need to make sure is within those documents. Thanks everybody. Then I will finish a few minutes early if nobody's got any other comments. But once again, Nicola, thank you so much for sharing that presentation, and I will put together a bit of an email based on things that people send me, and circulate that, and hopefully I can sort the recording out and send that as well. Okay, all right.
Thank you very much for listening, everybody. Hopefully it's been useful.
Thank you.
Even if it's just that we're not on our own.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good day. Bye bye.